Hey guys, so I've been really looking forward to doing this one. This is the top 10 detective movies that you should try and catch. So number one is Knives Out from 2019. Now everyone knows this one. This had an absolutely huge cast. Daniel Craig, Jamie Lee Curtis, Chris Evans, Anna Darmays, Tony Collette, and also Michael Shannon. It was absolutely brilliantly put together. It was based on all the Who Done It movies, and it was superbly performed by Daniel Craig, of course, who speaks with a very distinctive southern accent, and his character's name was Benoit Blanc, and it was just so different from, of course, he's known for Bond, so it was absolutely mind-blowing how different he was in this, and it became one of the movie's standout features, and it was talked about for months. It was released by Netflix on a very modest budget actually of only $40 million, but it went to make $300 million worldwide. It was a huge success, and because of that success, it opened up a franchise, and this became the first movie of the franchise, which led to Glass Onion was number two, and then number three was Wake Up Dead Man, which are all available on Netflix. Number two is The Zodiac from 2007. Now, this movie is so famous because it was so historically accurate, and it was based on the real life unsolved murders. There was five in total, by the Zodiac Killer, which occurred in San Francisco Bay between December 1968 and October 1969. It still just terrifies people to this day. It has never been solved. It's fascinating because the killer sent letters, about 20 in total, to newspaper at the time, goading them and telling them everything about the murders, and that became even more famous than the murders themselves. This movie is based on the writings of the reporter from that particular newspaper, and he has been studying these murders his entire career, and it's because of him that this movie was actually able to be made. His name is Robert Graysmith, and he released two books. The Zodiac was released in 1986, and then Zodiac Unmasked was released in 2002. And in this one, he gave his opinion of who he thought was the murderer, but unfortunately this was never proven. I've actually covered the Zodiac in another video if you want to go back, and I give way more details. It's one of the most fascinating cases I've ever come across, and it's still, I just hope they solve it someday soon. The movie was directed by David Fincher, and he spent 18 months studying the case, and so you can see this in the movie. The attention to detail is just spectacular. Number three is Prisoners from 2013. Now, this has become infamous for its dark story and incredible performances from Hugh Jackman and Jake Gyllenhaal. It was actually directed by Denis Villeneuve, and this was his first English movie. And it follows the desperate search of a father for two missing 6-year-old girls. It's incredibly hard to watch at times. There are some scenes that were actually so graphic they had to be cut out, and it affected the rating of the movie as well. Some scenes are really hard to watch, so just heads up, this isn't for everyone. The original cast was actually meant to be Christian Bale, Mark Wahlberg, and Leonardo DiCaprio, but they were all dropped, and I think maybe it was a good idea in the end. The film was a major critical and financial success, mainly due to the performances by Hugh Jackman and Jake Gyllenhaal and the supporting cast. Hugh Jackman's performance as the grieving father is just soul-crushing, and because of this, to this day, it's still regarded as one of the best crime and detective movies that's been made. Number four is Gone Girl from 2014. Now, this is actually based on a novel written by Gillian Flynn, and I actually read this book before I went to see the movie, and they're both absolutely spectacular, absolutely brilliant. So I'd really recommend this one. As I said, it's based on a novel by Gillian Flynn, and then she also wrote the screenplay for the movie, so it's completely authentic. She made a few adjustments actually, which I thought was quite clever. She changed a few stuff for those who had read the book, so that when you went to see the movie, you had one or two nice surprises, which I really appreciated. Before it was finally cast, There was a number of several major actors were up for the lead role: Charlize Theron, Emily Blunt, Natalie Portman, and Reese Witherspoon. But of course, it finally went to Rosamund Pike, who actually received a Best Actress nomination for this one, and deservedly so. She put her all into this, and I actually left it hating her. She played it so brilliantly well. I really believed her as the villain in this. Ben Affleck was also in it, and he played her husband, Nicholas Doon. Now, it was made for about $61 million, and it ended up earning over $360 million. So it did absolutely brilliant. And I remember at the time when it was first released, the amount of talk about it and the press it got for the twists and turns. It was brilliant. More than a decade after its release, it remains one of the most discussed psychological thrillers of the 2010s. So it's definitely worth a watch. Number 5 is Mystic River from 2003. Now, this was actually based on the 2001 novel by Dennis Lehane, and he's also known for writing books which later became Gone Baby Gone and Shutter Island. This actually is a very rare movie because two of the lead actors both won Oscars at the 76th Oscars that year. Tim Robbins won for Best Supporting Actor and Sean Penn won for Best Actor. This hadn't happened since Ben-Hur in 1959. And this will show you just how brilliantly picked these two actors were, and their performances are just spectacular. This was actually directed by Clint Eastwood, who is known for wanting real raw performances from his actors, so no wonder they won Oscars from this. As well as that, the cast was a who's who of Hollywood at the time, with Lawrence Fishburne, Laura Linney and Kevin Bacon. So it's an all-star cast, and every one of them brought their A game to this. So the detective team wasn't just the only thing covered in this. A lot of it covered themes of guilt, of revenge versus justice, like which one is more important, and then the lasting effects of childhood trauma. Some parts are very hard to watch. It's very sad, but I hope you enjoy it like I did. Mystic River is actually regarded as one of the finest crime dramas of the 2000s, and it actually cemented Clint Eastwood's fame as a director, and is frequently praised for its emotional, complex storytelling. So it's definitely one to watch. Now, number 6 is The Dragon Tattoo from 2011. Now, this one is also based from books, and this is a trilogy, and I actually read the whole trilogy before I watched this movie. It's one of my favorite detective books, actually, I have to be honest. The series was written by Stieg Larsson, and it's called the Millennium series, and it's the best-selling Swedish crime and thriller saga. There were 3 installments. The first one was The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, then The Girl Who Played with Fire, and then The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest. And unfortunately, only the first book was made into a movie. Now, anyone who has seen this will know that Rooney Mara went through an incredible transformation for this movie. She dyed her hair, she shaved eyebrows, she got eyebrow piercings. If anyone knows the series, this character is very unique and very different, I'll say. So she played this absolutely brilliantly. She plays Lisbeth Salander, and actually because of her dedication to the role, she got an Oscar nomination for Best Actress for this one at the Oscars that year. And also, I must say that Rooney Mara's performance as the character Lisbeth Salander is widely regarded as one of the decade's most memorable character portrayals. And many critics actually considered this movie one of the best English-speaking detective movies of the 2010s. So please, definitely go watch it. And I have to add as well that Daniel Craig is in it, and he plays a completely different character to what we usually know. And you must watch it for that too. Number 7 is Glass Onion, a Knives Out mystery, which was released in 2022. And of course, this continues on from Knives Out, the first one. Daniel Craig returns as our lead detective, and then this also stars Kate Hudson, Edward Norton, Dave Bautista, and Janelle Monáe. Again, another huge cast for this one. Now, Daniel Craig, of course, continues his southern accent for this one, but they nearly changed it for the second movie, but thankfully they decided to go against that. They were going to have a different accent for every movie, but they decided to stick with the southern accent, which was such a huge hit in the first one. At the beginning of the movie, there's actually a huge amount of celebrity cameos in it. And they're playing Among Us, an online game at the beginning, and there's Angela Lansbury, Natasha Lyonne, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and then also Stephen Sondheim. So that's interesting to see too. Number 7 is Sherlock Holmes from 2009. Now, this was directed by Guy Ritchie, who wanted to do a completely new take on the Sherlock character. He wants to portray him as a rugged adventurer who enjoys boxing, chemistry experiments, and disguises while still remaining true to the Conan Doyle books. Many viewers watching the movie were actually surprised to learn that a lot of the boxing skills of the character came from the original books. Of course, the lead of Sherlock Holmes was played by Robert Downey Jr., and this actually earned him a Golden Globe for Best Actor in a comedy, and he was highly regarded for playing this so differently from what we're usually used to, and it was very unconventional, and he went more with the eccentric humor side rather than the traditional reserved detective we know from the books. Of course, Watson was brilliantly played by Jude Law, and their chemistry actually is the best part of this movie. They feed off each other so well, and I think that's why this movie worked. It also features Rachel McAdams and of course Mark Strong as the bad guy, who we all know is he's the bad guy in a lot of the British movies, so it's really good to watch for that one too. The film actually grossed over $520 million worldwide, making it one of the most successful Sherlock Holmes adaptation movies ever made. Because of its success, it led to the sequel in 2011, Sherlock Holmes: A Game of Shadows. Now, there is talks about a third one being made, but it's going on for years and nothing has been actually put forward yet. Number 9 is The Murder on the Orient Express from 2017. Now, I must mention that there was actually one in 1974 with another huge cast, but today I'm going to talk about the one from 2017 because that's the one that I love personally. So this movie has a huge cast. It's a who's who: Judi Dench, Johnny Depp, Josh Gad, Willem Dafoe, Penelope Cruz, Michelle Pfeiffer. It's huge, and they all play off each other really well, and I think this is why this movie was a success. So this movie is actually adapted from the story of the same name, written by Agatha Christie in 1934, and this is actually one of the most famous detective stories ever written. It's one of the most adapted mystery novels in history as well, with previous film versions released in 1974 and then television adaptations. There was about 4 altogether. This particular adaptation was a huge success worldwide, and it earned $350 million and actually led to the sequel, which was called Death on the Nile, which was also directed by and starred Kenneth Branagh, with a new cast of course, and these movies helped revive interest in the Agatha Christie adaptations for modern audiences, and I think Kenneth Branagh did an absolutely brilliant job, and I loved his take on the character. Number 10 is LA Confidential from 1997, and this has become a cult classic since its release. It centers around the corruption in Los Angeles in the 1950s, focusing on 3 different policemen. One was straight-laced, one was brutal, and one was sleazy, and who are all investigating a series of murders with their own type of justice. It was directed by Curtis Hanson and has a huge cast, and this was actually Russell Crowe's one of his earliest ones. And then you have Kim Basinger, Danny DeVito, Guy Pearce, and Kevin Spacey. As I mentioned, this was one of Russell Crowe's earliest movies, and this actually got him big into Hollywood. This was his breaking moment, really. He plays Bud White, who is a violent but deeply moral cop, and he's considered, as I said, his breakthrough role. He was relatively unknown to the American audience before this, but this movie changed everything. Guy Pearce was actually a surprising choice for this one, but he worked out brilliantly in this movie. He was best known for Australian stuff, but Curtis Hanson chose him because he wanted Ed to feel like someone audiences wouldn't immediately recognize, and I think that was a good decision in the end. Kevin Spacey's character was actually based on real life celebrity cops, and it's kind of based on the idea of like Hollywood cops and who became media personalities, and we still have some of them today. His character shows how fame can corrupt even when people start with good intentions. So this movie actually at the time earned 9 Oscar nominations and went home with 2, and it actually won a Golden Globe as well from 5 nominations. The film won 2 Oscars for Best Supporting Actress by Kim Basinger and then Best Adapted Screenplay. and it has a 99% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, so that will show you that it has a lasting legacy and still to this day people enjoy it. So I hope you enjoyed my top 10 list of detective movies, which I must say are my favorite genre. So follow my channel and like and subscribe, and I'll give you another top 10 list soon. Enjoy.